Hey y'all, it's Zis here with another watercolor video. Let's dive in. So to get started in the studio today, I'm starting with something dry, which are these acrylic gouache by Holbein. These are the few colors I have so far. I always like to start with something dry that I've previously painted, just to get my hands moving and my brain into the studio kind of space. So I'm just labeling these for future reference. I'm a very organized person, maybe less so as an artist, but I'm trying to get a little more organized, so that's why I'm doing a lot of swatching and labeling and mixing on different types of paper so that I can feel a lot more confident when I go to actually make some art. For these few swatches, we're going to be using Strathmore 400 series paper. It's definitely not my favorite paper, but it's what I've got available to me locally. First up, we've got Shadow Green, which is PBK 31 by Holbein, and I believe that was the very first Paraline green, if I'm not mistaken. Next up, we've got Serpentine, which is one of the Primatex by Daniel Smith. This was one of the very first professional colors I swatched, and I was so excited to get it. Caput Mortuum. Not really ever sure how to say this, but it is one of my favorite colors of all time. This one is by Rosa Gallery, my first Rosa Gallery paints here. That was a PR 101 pigment. This next one is PV19 Quinacridone Lilac. And lastly, we have English Red by Rosa Gallery, which is another of their PR 101 pigments. I'm gonna try to let y'all just enjoy some of this filling up goodness. I know I'm really bad at filling these up, but let me know if you have any tips. I researched PV19s so much, and I am so stoked with this version by Rosa Gallery. Next, we are going to be cutting up one of my Caran d'Ache Neocolor aquarels that I accidentally broke, and remembering to put the scalpel down. Safety first, everybody. It doesn't exactly go to plan, but I still wanted to show y'all because, I just like to take y'all along for the ride. And of course, as always, if y'all have done this and have any tips for me as to how to maybe re-wet it a little bit better to get some better results, let me know down in the comments. And just as a disclaimer, if you're gonna use a scalpel to do something like this, make sure you practice all safety precautions and seal your blade up when you're done. Without further ado, enjoy the swatching. So this is where I was talking about running into some issues with this aubergine Caran d'Ache Neocolor. I've mainly used these either applying water and then applying the crayon, or I guess pastel, onto the paper, or by applying the crayon first and then, applying water over. I haven't used it out of a pan yet, so as you can see, I was having a little trouble getting, some deepening of the color, mass tone, I guess you could say, even though it's not the same as the actual watercolor. But I added the pastel back over the wet, and it did not really activate at all as creamily as it normally would. So I apologize for that. I'm gonna try to do a whole video on all of my Neocolors because they really are great, and if you have never seen them before, I don't want you to go away from this swatch thinking they're terrible because they're absolutely not. Okay, back to the swatching. Enjoy. Okay, I normally wouldn't have y'all sit here and suffer through me scraping off a watercolor, but I just wanted to highlight that it was kind of annoying to get out of the tube. It was hard to get in the pan. It was hard to get onto the paper, and at this point I started thinking maybe it's the paper because I always have issues with this paper. And I hadn't used the Caran d'Ache Neocolor on this paper yet and had problems with that one too. So we're gonna probably use a different paper next time. Anyhow, you can tell that I'm having a little bit of issues, and then we're having some scrubbing issues with the paper, so really sorry about that. This is supposed to just be a short, chill little swatch video. I kind of go back and fix any of the ugliness of the swatches once we label them at the end, so don't worry about that part. But yeah, I guess I'll let y'all enjoy the last swatch, and then we're gonna discuss how they compare to some of the other colors in the rest of my palette. This Quin Lilac by Rosa Gallery exceeds all my expectations. I'm really glad I did a lot of research. I believe the swatch of it that I kept looking at was at Jane Blundell, which most of y'all I'm sure are familiar with. If not, I will link it in the description. This PR 101 pigment is lovely. I'm really excited to paint and mix with it, this Caput Mortuum, I guess we'll call it. And I think y'all already heard my thoughts on the aubergine, so we're just gonna skip over that for now. I'm a little disappointed in the shadow green, but it does notoriously have a large drying shift, the PBK 31, which is a perylene green. But with that said, it's still beautiful, and I'm very excited to use it in some mixes especially. The green pigment of this serpentine, which is the Primatech, so we don't know the exact pigment as far as I know, is just beautiful. It has to be up there with one of my very top favorite greens. And although this English red does clash quite a bit against the serpentine, it is just so beautiful. And it does differ quite a bit from the other red earths or PR 101s I have in my palette. And I'm personally a huge fan of finding a hue that you like and then having like a diverse range of options in that hue. So that is what you will begin to see in the evolution of my palette. So let's check out these comparisons. In the last swatching video, y'all saw, I think, about 18 colors or 15, something like that, including this Quinn Burnt Scarlet and the English Red Earth. Those are both by Daniel Smith. This English Red by Rosa Gallery, I feel, sits right in the middle of these two. And in a weird way, I feel like this Naphthalide Maroon sits in the middle of Quinn Lilac and Caput Mortuum. So, I don't know. I just like having a variety of the color that I love. And here's Potter's Pink against those for comparison of the vibrancy of that Quinn Lilac. It's also very similar to the vibrancy of Rose of Ultramarine by Daniel Smith, which that Rose of Ultramarine by Daniel Smith is way too vibrant for me personally, so I tend to have to mix it down with, you know, buff titanium or like a perylene green. But I feel like the Quinn Lilac is kind of vibrant, but in a way that it will go with many other colors, which I'm really stoked about. If y'all would like to see a more in-depth comparison of some of the colors in my palette, especially if you're interested in buying some of these, please let me know and I would love to do that for y'all. If y'all missed the last video swatching those first colors of the palette, be sure to go check that out. In the next video, we're going to look at some of my favorite mixes out of the colors from this palette. And I'm excited to keep exploring and adding to this palette. Thanks so much for watching, y'all. And I'm gonna try to avoid drinking the forbidden lavender lemonade. See you next time. Bye.